This is the old Chrysler minivan. We had a slight mishap with the door. We had the door open and we were backing up, and the door got caught on something and it pulled the door farther open than it should be, and it damaged the hinge points on the frame. Now it made it so that the door wouldn't open or close because it was interfering with the fender, and it just didn't fit in the door opening anymore. So I could see that it had actually bent the area where it connects with the frame on the vehicle. And so I removed the front fender so I could get access to that area so I could see the problem better. Now, the same problem can happen if a strong wind catches the door and yanks the door wide open. And a couple things can happen. It can bend the door, it can bend the hinges, it can bend the door, or it can bend the attachment point on the vehicle, the actual frame. Hinges are one thing. You can go to the junkyard and get those. The door is a little harder. You can go to the junkyard and get a whole door. But where it attaches to the car is a different issue. And if you can get access to that area, I suppose you could use a big hammer and try and smash it back in place, but that's brute force. What I did was I made up a little gadget here, and it's actually attached right now. It's a U-clamp, a couple of long bolts, and this happened to be a piece of scrap metal I had around the head, like an elongated slot in it. But you could make the same thing out of or maybe at an auto parts repair store, they have different puller sets that have a piece that's like this, an elongated slot, or you could drill 4 holes there, two for the bolts here that go into the car, and 2 for the whatever fits the particular U-bolt that you buy at the hardware store. So then you just take a piece of something. That's the nice thing about the U-bolt, it's adjustable. You can get a block in there, and then you can take a bar. And what you have is extremely controlled leverage, and depending on the length of your bar, a lot of it. And I was able to walk around and make the area that was bent perfectly flat again. So very easy, very precise fix. I'm going to go ahead and put it back together and see how it turns out. Okay, so I've got the door back on the car, and the bottom hinge point is fixed. The frame was bent where it attached, but the top hinge point, I think the door is bent, and I've got the bottom hinge looking pretty good, but when I go to shut the door, I can tell that the hinge is bottoming out on the top, and it's kind of sprung open. And when I push the door, it wants to put stress on the bottom hinge. And it's because the top hinge is bottoming out. So what I don't want to do is bend my bottom point again. So I'm going to work on taking the door loose, disconnect both hinges, and then I'm going to work with putting some mechanical force on the top hinge point where it connects the door to bend the door back. Okay, so I have the hinges loose. Both the top and the lower hinges are loose. And I've been looking at this. This is interesting. When this door came flying open, or actually got pushed open, it rotated so far on the hinge. Look at this. The hinge, the door came in contact with the hinge right here. There's a place where the grease got wiped off the hinge there. Look, it put a little divot in the door. That's how far this door went past its normal operating range. It just got forced open, and it physically bent the door where the hinge is attached. Now what I want to do is put enough torque on this door, and what I'm thinking about doing is getting on here on this hinge and just yanking on it with some leverage to bend the hinge point back, or the point area where it attaches to the door. Another thing I'm experimenting with, I've never done it this way before, is I'm using some ratchet straps and some soft ties. These are motorcycle soft ties for connecting to a motorcycle frame, and some ratchet straps there that go to the other side of the car, the frame, to hold the door up while I'm working on it. And this is neat. Normally I use a jack, a hydraulic jack, a floor jack with a board on it to support the door on the bottom, which is a pain. It turns into a two-person job because the door always wants to fall off from the jack stand. But this way, you can actually, because of the soft ties are compliant, you can fit that door in the opening while it's being supported and kind of move it around a bit. It's working out pretty slick. Well, here we go. We've put some stress on this upper hinge. I used a giant crescent wrench right here, and was able to get on here. Had to have someone stand at the back side of the door and hold the back side of the door while I was prying on the front side of the door. So I was able to bend the hinge point, excuse me, the connection point. This is a welded on hinge on this door, on the top of the door just enough so that it's not springing at that point when it goes all the way closed. And the best part about this is that now the door closes nice. Probably as good as it ever did for a 1994 Chrysler minivan. So we've got a little bit of damage here on the door from when it was interfering with the fender. Probably be good to do a little bit of sanding and painting on that before we put the fender in, just so it's easier to get to the back side of that crease.